ask the Boy Scouts to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jack Karowski, and who is your friend with you?
Dave's my brother.
Your brother. Okay, come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. The roll, please.
Belke,
Here.
Belzak,
Here.
Clistic,
Here.
Kenny,
Here.
Marquez,
Present.
McIver, Shower,
Here.
6 present.
We have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is the questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Do any of the, well, I'd like to open it to the audience. Do any of the audience members have anything to come up and say? Come on up to the microphone, please.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name's Leonard Catalano. I'm the president of the Police Pension Board, and I watched the last City Council meeting, and I just want to address the City Council. If there was any misconceptions that you may have had from the last meeting, the way it was described with our new actuary. Now, Alderman, I want to start with Alderman Shower when he asked Mike Corrin what my concerns were with our current actuary, and Mike's reply was, I believe you said that I didn't want to say it at a public meeting. But that's actually not what happened. In our January Police Pension Board meeting, our pension board was advised by one of our investors that all of his clients that used Tim Sharp was told that Tim Sharp advised all those clients that he was no longer doing pension actuarials. That's what prompted the beginning of getting a new actuary. So in our January meeting, it was decided by the board that we need to get a new actuary, and a fair process was to contact 3 actuaries, have them attend our April meeting for an RFP and a presentation. And that's exactly what I did. Now, in the meantime, in February, Mike did meet with me. It wasn't a formal meeting. It was actually at a children's playground in Countryside where we were watching our grandchildren, and Mike did mention that the city auditors do have a list of actuaries if the pension board needed them, and I accepted that offer. He also said that Tim Sharp was willing to do our actuary for 1 more year. But under the circumstances, I didn't feel that was proper, plus the pension board already decided to move forward. So we had 3 actuaries. All 3 were very competent actuaries. They all have experience in police pension funds, and I did exactly what the board said we should do to bring the 3 forward to the April meeting. Unfortunately, one couldn't show up. He was involved in a car accident on his way to the meeting, so he forwarded the RFP. Now, I have to say that Jason Franken from Foster & Foster put on an excellent presentation. Now, there was an inference made at the last City Council meeting. Mike said he tried to fight the issue, but there was nothing he can do. There's 3 police officers on the board and 2 appointed by the mayor. I just want to say that it was unanimous by all 5 board members to hire Jason Franken of Foster & Foster for the actuary. So it seemed like in the last City Council meeting there was kind of a gray painted picture of exactly what happened, but I just want to inform the board, the City Council here, that there was nothing under the table done, and that everything was all up and above, and this is the reason why we appointed the new actuary, or elected to hire a new actuary. It had nothing to do with anything personal against the current actuary. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer. No.
I'd like to address what you've just said, Lenny. And I'm not questioning the actuary. I think the one we chose, I think, is very well qualified. I don't have a problem with that. I think if you look back at the minutes in the January meeting, there was no discussion. You mentioned that you thought maybe we should look for a new actuary. No one else picked up on that. No one said anything. And that was where that was left. Then in February, when we saw you with this play date with your grandchildren and my grandchildren, the day before, we had a planning meeting with our auditors, Sikich, and they told us that they heard that Tim Sharp was no longer going to be doing actuarial reports. So I said, well, I would contact him and find out. I contacted him, and he didn't say he would be willing to do it for 1 year. He said, we've been a good customer for a lot of years, and he's trying to cut back, so he would still be willing to continue doing ours. But I also asked them, I said, are there any others that you work with that you could recommend or give us some names of? And they said they don't make any recommendations, but they do have quite a few they work with. And I said, well, if I need to, I'll let you know, and I'll get those names for you. The next thing I know, we come to the April meeting. We have 3 actuaries presenting, and I don't fully agree with you that they're all fully qualified. The one gentleman from the one firm, they only do 9 actuarial reports on public pension funds,
Correct.
and they've only been doing those for 2 years, so they don't have a lot of experience. And the unanimity was in that they agreed to use Foster and Foster because I fought hard, and what I still feel very firmly about is that you were pushing to have Lauterbach engage as the actuary, and they were the cheapest quote, I will grant you that, but they also do all the work for the police pension fund, and John Breslin and Jim Caldwell, both former CPAs, practicing CPAs, both agreed with me that they have a conflict of interest. Right in their report, they say they are not independent with respect to the police pension fund. And that's where I was arguing that I did not believe that it should be Lauterbach. I don't have a problem with Foster and Foster. In fact, I've already reached out to them. I think Franken, I think they will do a fine job. I think they're a fine firm. But I disagreed with the way the process was done because you basically just took and solicited several quotes from several people, never contacted me, said, hey, what are some other names? Maybe we can get some others on there. It just magically appeared at the end of the April meeting. That's the process that I object to. That's what I'm.
There was a discussion in the January meeting, Mike, because in February, you approached me and told me that you have a list of actuaries.
No, I
So-
told you that I had heard from Sikich that Tim Sharp was no longer going to be doing it, and that if we needed names, that I could provide those to you, that I could contact Sikich and get those for you. And you never followed up one way or the other. You've got to admit that.
John Faldudo did bring it up at the January meeting, and that's what started this whole thing going, to get a new actuary. John Faldudo did bring it up at the January meeting, that Tim Sharp is no longer doing actuaries. That's what he heard. And that's when the board discussed that, and our attorney even advised us that it would be good to have 3 people come to the meeting in April, get 3 actuaries with RFPs and presentations. So it was discussed.
I have no problem with that. I fully agree.
It was
But I think
discussed,
we
though.
could have broadened the scope a little bit instead of, I have no idea where he got these people from. Again, I don't question Foster and Foster. I think they're a great company. But I think we could have broadened the scope of it a little bit. So I disagree with the process, not with the ultimate outcome. And you look at the minutes of that meeting, and there's nothing in those minutes that will indicate what you're saying, that it was agreed by the board to go ahead and solicit RFPs from others.
Well, then you can ask any of the board members who were at that meeting.
Well, they've all had the right, and they've all approved the minutes of that meeting. It was not reflected anywhere in those minutes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience want to address the council? Then let's move on to the approval of the minutes of May 2nd. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Belke, seconded by Alderman Belzak. Any additions or deletions for the clerk? Then the roll, please.
Belke. Aye. Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
The minutes have been approved. Let's move to receiving of communications. Alderman Kenny?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I received a communication this morning from Charlene Kuglin, 1500 block at 71st Street, in regards to a fire that took place in one of her neighbor's homes yesterday. She was concerned that when phone call was reached to DUCOM, the DUCOM was asking a lot of questions, kind of like what Chief Thomas had talked to us about before. I assured her that that's just a process that they're doing it, that once you make the phone call, they aren't dispatching to where they got to go, but they're keeping you on the line so they can get further information while the units are heading. She went on to say that it took 13 minutes for the fire department to show up at his home yesterday. I want to know why it took so long. So I have made communication with Mr. Nosek Mr. Guymick, and I'll talk to Chief Thomas here a little later to see if we can figure out why it took so long for that to get to that house yesterday. That's all I got.
Any other communications from the Alderman? Alderman Belke?
I have 3 communications. The first one is from an individual on the 100th block of 68th Street. And I wanted to touch this in the police committee meeting today, but we ran over time a little bit, and I thought it'd be a good thing to bring up to all residents and the council. And this question has to do with solicitors' licenses. We're seeing some solicitors go door to door in this nicer weather now. And the comment was on Direct Connect, and in the city's website, you can get the forms to fill out to be a solicitor. But when somebody actually comes to your door, they aren't equipped to know if it's a legit permit or not. What does it look like when it's approved?
They
Can you
are,
comment on that?
from what I understand, they have to carry their
They have
their
to carry it.
permission.
So what the individual is saying, how do I know it's legit? Couldn't they make up their own
So we're
card?
talking
think
about
it's a
maybe
matter of-
putting the illustration of the permit out, maybe on Direct Connect on our website,
Okay.
so residents will know
What it
yeah,
real-
what it
the
actually
really
a
looks
permit
like.
looks like. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, right.
Okay.
Thank you. The second one is from an individual on the 71st 100th block of Eleanor, and these next 2 will be, Dan will be helping with me, I hope. And this one has to do with some concerns with 7117, 7121, and Kingswood Academy. And as we're doing ditching in that area, there was some concerns with not proper drainage flowing along those residents' homes.
Right, in summary, I know we looked at it. Eleanor is an area that's relatively flat. It is scheduled in the future for a ditching project. There's gonna be some possible modifications we can work right on the corner of Eleanor and Janet to help relieve some of that water that backs up around the corner, because that eventually ties into Sunrise. So without not expanding the Sunrise project, we'll see what we could do at least to have some effect on it.
Thank you. And the last one is in regards to a resident at the 66th 100th block of Southwestern Avenue. This is a kind of unique situation. I've had it only once appear in my ward that I know of, but this is the stretch of road that is also getting ditches done, and this resident has a property where neighboring residents have sidewalks, and then the sidewalk drops off, and then it's just grass, and it just ends. So the individual is reaching out to say, hey, you know, this construction's going on, maybe it's a good time to add the sidewalks in. So if, Dan, you want to give us an update on what was told with that?
Yeah.
The resident inquired about putting in, let me back up a second. First of all, Western Avenue from 67th back to the north for approximately half a block, or four houses or 5 houses to the north, is the city of Darien limits. Within those limits, the first 2 or 3 homes have a sidewalk. Then the sidewalk abruptly stops. There's 2 homes that would need to get picked up to complete the sidewalk, one of them being, I believe, was 6612. 66, correct me if I'm wrong, 6612 Western, I don't have it in front of me. But they inquired to put in a sidewalk. They were informed that the city does not put in sidewalks randomly, but they have the opportunity to pay for the installation of a sidewalk, whether it's one person or multiple residences. There is discounting that would happen to work, just for the simple reason that we're in the area and there's certain things that will be discounted. For example, restoration or the driveways, which we're replacing with concrete, that will be discounted from the residents. So in this particular case, the cost was approximately $4,000 to put in the sidewalk. We had to give them a deadline. That deadline was today at noon. I did have a conversation with her this morning. She emailed me over the weekend, so we had some conversation this morning. It was a good conversation. I did not hear from them for the rest of the day, at which it's probably close to later in the day. I had wrote back to them telling them that we would not be moving forward with the sidewalk just due to timing at this point. So in a nutshell, we've had residents in the past, I think it was in Richmond a couple years ago, where they had put in, same scenario, a section of sidewalk, probably at a cost of $5,000 to $6,000 in that case. So that's where it stood at.
Thank you.
It's out of curiosity, the ditching has been done right on that portion of Western Avenue. When will the landscaping and the property be put back together?
The restoration is begun. Today, the ditching was completed, the concrete, and I should say the blacktop and concrete restoration will be happening tomorrow for the concrete. The blacktop will follow. So within the next week and a half, we should have landscape restoration of turf grass going in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's it, all right. I just want to say thank you to the Younger Than Ever seniors. I spoke at their meeting this afternoon and brought them up to date on all the issues going on in the city of Darien, and good time was had by all, and I thank them for the invitation to come and speak. And I asked them if they would like to have one of our elder services officers come to speak to them in the future, and they would be grateful to have that happen. So when we can get one of the officers on that time sequence, that I think it's the third Monday of every month they meet. We can actually, Steve Kawina is the individual that reached out to me, and we can coordinate something with one of the elder service officers.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on, under the mayor's report, I'd like to recognize Mr. Jack Kurkowski. We presented Jack with a letter on April 28th because he has achieved the level have you had your Court of Honor already? Okay, it's coming up yet. But I'd like to read some of Jack's accomplishments and why he is so deserving and has worked so hard to achieve this honor. He served as a Tiger Scout at age 7 in first grade at Cub Scout Pack 101. He earned the Arrow of Light in the 6th grade and graduated to the Boy Scout level. And he joined Boy Scout Troop 97 in Darien in 6th grade and progressed through the ranks of Boy Scout through grade school, high school, and he earned 34 Boy Scout merit badges. He earned the World Conservation Award, Paul Bunyan Woodsman Award, as well as the Brotherhood of the Order of the Arrow while a Scout. And you participated in a lot of events with the Darien VFW 2838 and Memorial Day events and the 4th of July parade. So, and to top it all off, you've been on the honor roll at your high school through this process. So congratulations to you on your accomplishment. And I'd like to have you come up and say a few words for us, Jack.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Weaver and the board for letting me come here and congratulating me. And this is probably the greatest achievement of my life so far. And I hope to use the skills in like my Eagle Scout project and everything that I've learned throughout it to help the community even more. And that's all I have to say.
Why don't you describe your Eagle Scout project that you did?
It was over at Lord of Life. I went to preschool there, and they had a bunch of sheds. They had 2 sheds there. They wanted one taken down, the other one renovated and repaired. So for that one, I got a dumpster ready. I got all that. Got a bunch of building materials ready, and I funded it by going into the church and speaking there and getting fundraising, and then I brought all the materials there, got all the work there, and got all the workforce they needed to do it, took down the shed, and then renovated the other one, fixing the shingles, repainting it, and putting new structure on it because it was internally damaged. So.
Yeah, bad shape. Congratulations, that's great project. Good. Why don't we, Paul, you've got a camera, right? Okay. Why don't we do a pretend, do a pretend presentation of this letter that I just read from, and you come up here, and we'll take a picture of you so we can put you on the wall of fame.
It's me.
What were you doing when I met you that day? You were standing outside a Jewel doing...
We were doing the for all feet.
Oh, okay. All right. food pantries, yes, yes. Speaking of food pantries, we have a lot to say about food pantries. So Paul, do you want to take a picture? And Mom, did you want to come up and take a picture also? Sure. And Alderman Klisick, I think these are residents in your ward.
Absolutely. I got a little extra congratulations as well. As a fellow Eagle Scout, I expect great things from you going forward. So I got a little thank you gift from my ward as well.
Okay, you got the picture? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, so just congratulations for my ward. Appreciate it and all the hard work that goes into it. As a fellow Eagle Scout, I did something very similar, putting together a playground in my church. So I gotta say it's a very good stepping stone. And as you go forward in life, look back as you look forward as challenges and maybe some difficulties you have as something you can look back on and go forward on. So absolutely. Congratulations again.
From what I understand, most of very well-known individuals, very accomplished people, men, obviously, in our society, have been Eagle Scouts. So you are going into a very special fraternity there. Congratulations, Jack.
Jack, are we going to
Jack,
see your
when is
brother here at some meeting soon? The competition usually among brothers will make sure he's here some point.
Jack, when is your ceremony that you're going to be honored as Eagle Scout?
It's like the 18th.
And where's that going to be at?
I think that's a Sunday? No, Saturday.
Is it going to be at Lord of Life?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, congratulations, Jack. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate you coming. Okay, the next item under the mayor's report is the ComEd annual report. And we have, who is with us this evening? Phil Halliburton. Okay. And you have a trusty sidekick here?
Yeah, my partner here. This is Santiago Becerra, and he is our reliability manager with ComEd for this area. So, good evening. Thank
You might
very
want to
much.
pull that microphone up a little bit higher.
Mayor, just to note again, I'm noticing the report itself is not in with this packet, but it was distributed to the council ahead of this meeting in a paper format. So if you don't have it on on the computer, you have a paper copy. Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you very much, Mayor Weaver, for allowing us to be here today. Thank you very much to the council. My name is Phil Halliburton. Most of you probably do not know me because I am new in terms of representing ComEd.
You took
for the
over
city.
Terry Simon's position?
Right.
Okay.
So Terry, in mid-February, was moved to a special project, which no one will tell us what she's doing, but she's still with the company, but she's in the special project that she's doing right now. And so I'm currently her interim representative until either she comes back or a new person is named. So it's a pleasure to be here to speak with you all today. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. So I'm just going to go through the highlights of the annual report because it's a lengthy one. I don't want to keep everyone here for an hour or so. But we've actually seen some great improvement. I shouldn't even say good, great improvement in terms of what's happened with Darien. I had the opportunity to sit down with Byron and sit down with Paul, and
That's Brian.
Sorry,
That's
Brian.
all right.
Sorry.
It looks like Byron when you look at
Sorry,
it. quick.
my brain. With Brian and with Paul to go through some of the questions and some of the history of what has happened with the city of Darien and ComEd. So going through the annual report, we were able to really see what improvements have happened, and it's not a finished story because we're going to continue to work in the city and to continue to try and do the improvements that need to be done. So just some highlights of what's been going on over the past maybe 3 or 4 years. So between 2012 and 2015, we installed a number of our DA devices. DA devices are what's called our distributed automation devices. For lack of a better term or for simplification purposes, these devices help to do a number of things, but 2 main things. They help to allow for our system to, if there's interruptions that come up, like so for example, if a tree limb happens to hit a wire, normally in the past what may happen is it would trip out an entire area with a larger circumference or a larger population. These DA devices have been installed on a lot of our feeders or circuits, depending on which terminology you use, to help cut down on that. So if there's something that comes up, either a full outage or if it's something that might be an interim, it helps to lessen the amount of customers that are affected. They also do a number of things, including allow the system itself to automatically switch everything over, and also to sense if there is a fault, to trip out for a second, and then to trip back in and say, is this really a fault, or is this just something that may have momentarily happened? And what that does is, instead of it now tripping out a population in the city of Darien, once it senses that issue has resolved itself, it automatically trips back in. So it's like a millisecond hit, it stops, checks, goes back in. And it'll do that a number of times before it actually locks out and says, no, this is an actual issue. And sometimes you'll see that happen on high wind days. When you have windstorms, you may have a tree branch that brushes up against the line, something like that. So instead of it tripping out an entire feeder, now it may just sense it. If it doesn't happen again, everyone's still in power. You don't even really notice it. So we've installed 23 of those over the last 3 years. We have 2 additional ones that are planned to be installed this year. We've done a lot of underground cable work. We've treated or replaced 21.2 miles of cable in the city of Darien over the last 3 years. And this year we plan to do 10.6 additional miles. We've already completed 1.3.
This year?
This year.
You're going to do 10 miles?
Another 10 miles in the city.
In just 1 year?
In 1 year. We've already completed 1.3 miles. So this is, again, continuing to do the improvements in the city. We've done other things like assessment of manholes. We've done thermography. Thermography is basically kind of an image scanner to just see if we see hot spots along the lines, if we see possible trouble issues before they become trouble, so that we can do corrective action to replace those. We've done a lot of storm improvement work, including installing 2,200 feet of what we call our spacer cable. It's a tree-resistant cable. It's a little bit of a thicker cable, and it's in a different configuration than a standard cable would be. And we usually put those in areas that if we've tried a number of different things and it hasn't worked, or if the way how the system or the street may be configured and that's the option that we have, we try to put that in, and it's a very resilient cable. And we've done also a lot of vegetation trimming. So between 2012 and 2015, we did 105 miles of vegetation trimming. And in looking at the history of what's happened with the city of Darien, a lot of it has been vegetation, tree contact, could be broken limbs, it could be whatever it is, but we've seen that. And so the cycle usually is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Santex, 4 years, right? Every 4 years is a routine tree trimming cycle. And so we did a number of the circuits in the last 3 years. So we should be, hopefully, and from what we've seen, seeing a decrease in the frequency of outages that have happened in the city of Darien. Those DA devices that I spoke about, the automated devices, were able to avoid over 7,300 customer interruptions since 2012. So, that goes to show you how many outages, how many customers were not inconvenienced because we were able to put this new technology in. And the DA devices are part of the EIMA legislation that went through, our infrastructure maintenance. Give me the acronym again. It's EIMA. And we always call it EIMA, so it's in my head.
Don't you love all those acronyms?
Yeah, the acronyms always happen. But it's basically part of legislation that was put in place to say, listen, this is going to help us now manage the system better, automate the system where we can, cut down on customer interruptions, try to help improve customer experience, and that is where we're going. That's our push, is to provide a premier customer experience to every single one of our customers. The number of underground faults, in other words, the cable that runs underground, the number has been the lowest in the last 4 years. Customers due to underground faults, actually, it's the lowest on record. And number of weather-related interruptions are also the lowest on record. So we've done a lot of work in the city. We're trying to continue to see that, continue to push in that direction. If we do see hot spots come up or pocket areas that come up, we try to address it. If we do see outages on the feeder in the same exact location, one of the misconceptions that happens is that when we get outages on a feeder, a lot of times people will ask us, well, why don't you just replace the feeder, or why don't you just do the whole thing over? What happens is a feeder could be miles long. So we could have, say, 6 outages on a feeder, but it can be in completely different areas. And also the different devices, the feeder itself doesn't only consist of the cabling, but it also includes the DA devices and all the equipment that comes with it. So there's a lot of things that could contribute to the outages, but also they could be in completely separate areas and also affect completely separate customers. And so what we do is when those outages do happen, we do our best to try to address specifically what that issue is. If we cannot address the issue, or if we do not see the issue immediately, we'll go out and we'll do visual inspections, we'll do the thermography, we do a lot of different testing to try to find an issue, and at that point, we'll do maintenance. Last year alone, like I said, we did so much in underground cable replacement, and also this year, we're proactively trying to do our best to get ahead of any of these issues, or if we do see things come up, we're trying our best to address those as they do.
Yeah, that was my question, I think, Paul, and I think that's what you were addressing. On W 805, there was 20 interruptions. And I said, that's what my question to Paul to send to you is, why don't you just replace the whole feeder then, if you have that many interruptions on one? But now you're saying that they could be in different locations
Right.
along that line.
Right. So if that feeder could be, say, 5 miles, those interruptions could be anywhere along those lines. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the same equipment. What we look
But
for.
these 20 interruptions, aren't you saying that if you have 20 interruptions, these are interruptions in Darien?
They're in Darien, yes, but they may not be on the same. So, for example, and it's.
I'm quoting from your statistic. W 805 had 20 interruptions. Okay.
Right.
In Darien.
Right. So
Okay.
805 is one of the feeders in the village, in the city of Darien.
Okay.
So those 20 interruptions may not, though, be on the same exact location. So, for example, say if we're using this counter as a 20-mile or as a 5-mile stretch, one of those interruptions could be here, one of those could be here, one of those could be there. When we see a large quantity of them in the same area, we look for correlation, and we look for things that might be contributing to causing those outages in that specific area. And then we go in and we say, okay, that might be an area where we have to do a complete, workup. If it's something where it might have been, for example, tree contact, then it's not really anything wrong with the feeder, it's the tree. So then we have to say to ourselves, okay, we need to do vegetation management, we need to do tree trimming. If it's a situation where some of these may not be, they may be dig-ins from contractors, it could be our equipment, and if it is our equipment, we replace the equipment. But there's a number of different factors that contribute to what can cause an outage. I mean, even on an overhead line, something as simple as a Mylar balloon, the balloons with the silver backing, when those hit a power line, because of that silver it causes chaos. We have animals, squirrels, especially in the winter. Our transformer is really warm, so they sit on a transformer. They try to heat up. Monk parakeets, birds, that kind of stuff. So there are a number of different contributing factors. This year, knock on wood, weather was not that much of an issue, so we had a good year in terms of weather. But that's also something that can contribute to it. So we look at all of these things when we look at these outages. And again, if we see that two things. If we see that there's a constant happening, we do look at it, and that's where Santiago and his team comes in. Santiago is the person that's monitoring the stuff, and he's looking to see, hey, wait a minute. I'm noticing now there's 5 outages that happened in the last, say, 4 months. Let me look at those outages. And also with your assistance, because, no one's perfect. So with your assistance, and the village, our city has been great in letting us know if something pops up that they would like us to look at. So when that happens, we look at it and we'll say, okay, this is what we're noticing. This was a mile and a half away from the last outage. Affected completely different people, was a completely different piece of equipment. So there's no correlation. But if it's the same, say the same transformer that feeds the exact same set of people that has gone out 3 times, then we know. Now we have to fix that transformer. And we also have to see, okay, is the cable damaged that's attached to that transformer? So we look at that. So these are the things that we do in the process that we go through whenever we look at those.
Okay. Paul, do we have any more pockets within the city that has been having a lot of issues? I know Pine Parkway had a bunch of issues for a while, and I think over on, oh boy, what's that other street right off of Plainfield Road, where the Dinellos live? On Stevens, they had a bunch of outages. Do we have any more pockets like that happening?
No, we haven't seen any.
Okay.
I mean, so there's the two things that we look at when we look at reliability, or the 2 main factors are what's called our safety and our CADI. The safety is basically the frequency, so the frequency of outages a customer experiences. The CADI is the duration. Your safety has gone down tremendously. In 2014, the safety was a 1.11. In 2015, your safety was a 0.6. So all the work that we're doing is helping to bring that number down. You know, we did see a slight uptake in the duration, and that can be for a number of other reasons. A lot of times when it's underground equipment, like you guys have a lot of underground, and we've done a lot of underground work, I always tell people, people ask all the time, well, which one's better, overhead or underground? Which one's better? It's pros and cons to both. The great thing about overhead is if something goes wrong, you can see it. If the transformer goes, you know where it is. If a cable comes down, you know where it is. If it's underground, then you have to look for it a little bit. So that adds a little bit of time to it. You may have to call out for emergency Julies, So some of those additional things factor into the time. It's not something that we still look to try and find ways to lower that. But the frequency is usually the larger part of it. And the fact that that has been pretty much cut in half is a great story for the city.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Phil?
Phil, you said that you've installed 23 of these devices.
Mhm.
Is that throughout the city, and is there? You said how many more are you going to install?
We have
more?
we're 2 to plan to install for this year. And I think, and I'm not 100%, but I believe right now we're planning to do another 2 in 2017.
How do you determine where those go?
That goes by, usually by the frequency. Like, so if we see areas that there are large amounts of outages that are happening,
Yeah.
we know that those are the areas that we want to, number one, not only just address the issue in terms of, putting these DA devices in to cut down the amount of customers, but also look and see what's the issue itself. So the areas that have the high frequencies are usually where they go in.
Okay.
Because if again, say for example, if something happens, we don't want, 500 or 600 or 700 customers out. If we can cut that number down to half of it, that'd be great. Or if we can find a way to do what we call sectionalizing, where we can do switching and sectionalize parts of the feeder. So even if an initial, say 1,000 go out or 500 go out, if we can find ways now to say, okay, from here to here, this is fine. So now we might add a DA device that'll put in right here and say, we can pick these customers up and they'll be fine. So they may only experience, instead of it being an hour outage or 20-minute outage, a 5-minute outage or a 3-minute outage. Or if it's a DA and it really, everything talks to each other properly, they may not even experience it.
Another question with regard to the smart meter installation. When we had a presentation several months ago, they said that they talked about how this would all unfold with regard to notices to residents. I haven't seen anything yet come up.
So City of Darien is expected to start July 25th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like with postcards or with
Right.
notices. And
So what happens is,
Did you?
90 days before, you'll get the inserts in the bill inserts.
okay.
So it's actually about 90 days before is when you'll start to see those. 60 days before is when you'll actually start to see the mailer.
Okay.
So if you're in July, so you should be starting to see them towards the end of this month.
Okay.
Is when you're going to start to see those postcards come in the mail. And then 30 days before is when you'll get the letter. So there'll be a letter that comes addressed to the resident or the customer or we're both doing residential and commercial. So it could be the commercial owner or it could be the resident to say, hi, again, we're just calling to let you know, or we're writing to let you know what's going on. This is what you should expect. It should have some frequently asked questions in there, so if they have, it'll have contact information. And one of the biggest things I try to push for the smart meter part of it is, so the smart meter area has a specific customer service number. And that is for specific, if there's a question that a resident has or the municipality or village has, city has, that they want addressed, definitely feel free to reach out to me as trustees and the mayor. But if a resident has a question, they should definitely call that number because they specify specifically on the smart meter. Sometimes if they call the regular customer service number, they may not get the specific answer that they need or they're looking for. So we're trying our best, and that we've been, in everything that they get, they will get that number in there specific to the smart meter. And then 7 days before that, they'll get a phone call with a message, what's called a robocall, that says, hi, within 7 days, we're gonna be in your area to let you know to expect us. And then we'll do the deployment. And then that'll start, like I said, July 25th. If a resident's not home, we'll leave a door hanger saying to them, hi, we were here, we'd like to schedule an appointment to come in and switch out your meter. A majority of the residents may not even see an outage. At this rate, I think it's about 70% that do not even see an outage. They're able to basically put a jumper in, pull out the old meter, put the new one in, and you're good to go.
Is this, are these meters going inside a home?
Wherever the meter is now. So
Most
if the
of them are
meter-
outside, aren't they?
So, right. And so, but reason why we say if no one's home, so for example, if you have a locked gate and we can't get into your
okay.
backyard, if you have a dog and we're trying to be very sensitive to people's pets, try to be sensitive, but we usually if our installers are coming in, we ask that you put away the dog because we don't want any possibility. We have a lot of people who say, oh, my dog doesn't bite, and that's great, but we don't want to have that opportunity present itself
Well,
because
and
it's happened.
the outfits that your employees will be wearing will be very obvious. That is I'm sure, a very
Right.
big concern.
It is.
I know for our police department.
I will double check. I believe, and I have to double check, so please don't quote me on it, but I believe that for Darien, it should be ComEd employees that are doing it, not one of our contractors. But either way, they will have ComEd ID, they will have paraphernalia, they'll be in a little van that says ComEd Smart Meter
Right.
on the van. It won't be like a random blue van that just pulls up in front of their house. So, and if they have any questions, they can definitely call up customer service, and customer service can help in the system. And
So
say that-
residents should know where their electric meter is now.
Yeah.
So that they know whether the individual has to come into their home or not. So they won't fall for somebody coming to their door saying, oh, I've got to do this.
Right.
Okay.
And another thing, we do not ask for money. We're not asking for money for any meters. So if someone comes to you and says, oh, we need money from you, or no, we don't need your account number, we don't need the cash from you, that's not us.
I'm assuming they will not also say, please come to the rear yard, I want to show you the meter I'm changing. That one we want to, just know how that works too, because
To be-
that's a scam where they'll try to get people out
Yes.
from the front door into the backyard and show them something.
That is a real great concern, Greg.
You know what? To
Bill.
be honest with you, the only time I could see that happening is if there might be an issue. Like for example, so when we go out to do the meter itself is literally the only piece that ComEd owns. The fitting, the meter pan, the box, everything that goes around is usually customer property. On a normal day, if something were to go wrong with everything but the meter, it would be the customer's responsibility. With the program, what we're doing is we have, like I said, either our folks or if it's a contractor, a hired electrician that's licensed, and we have all the paraphernalia for that. They will do minor repairs. So if there's something that they can just repair, they'll repair it. If it's something that's more significant, then they might say to the homeowner, we were unable to exchange your meter because of so and so forth. And for that, they may want to show them that. If the homeowner feels uncomfortable, by all means, they don't have to. They can say, you know what, I would prefer if someone could just either call me or send me a letter or whichever way it is. Or if you note it on the account, I'll call customer service at the number provided and do it that way. And for safety, that's not a problem.
Well, yes, we need your guys to be very sensitive to this issue
Okay.
because we have concerns. We have scam artists, unfortunately, we have to deal with all the time. So
And it's unfortunate. So it happens. I mean, I'll tell you. So prior to coming to Illinois, I worked for the utility in New York City. It happens across the country. It happens in New York City all the time. And unfortunately, the worst part of it is that a lot of times they target elderly, the elderly.
And I was just
community.
speaking to the seniors
And
this
it's-
afternoon, so that's was my advice to them.
Yeah.
Don't even
Yeah.
consider opening the door.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if they, all ComEd employees will have an ID that looks like this, and they'll have their name, and as I said, they don't have to, if they do not want to open the door, if they do not want to, that's fine. If they want to check, they can call up our customer service line and say, does this employee work for you? He's telling me he's here to change out my meter, and this is his name, and this is his general description. I mean, they can do that. But by all means, whatever you need to do to feel safe, I completely understand.
Would that resident have the ability to disallow your staff to come to the door and then schedule another time for them to come? So,
Yeah,
so they
that's-
knew that, they would know, say, ComEd's coming to my house at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, they can. I mean, and like I said, for the most part, they may not even see us there. Like if it's something where it's easily accessible, we can just go in and do it, take it in and out, fine. If it's in their home, then by all means, that can definitely be done. They can say, listen, at this time I don't have the time to have you guys come in, or I'd like to schedule a time for a technician to come in as opposed to now. And then they can call up the customer service number that's in the information that's going to be mailed to them, and just say to them, hey, can we schedule a day and time for that to happen? That's not a problem.
Any other questions for Phil? Yes, Dan?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom?
Quick question, are they allowed to, for example, if you have landscaping or something in front, to move that as well? Or how does that generally work? Like if you have a small fence, or if they scratch the house up?
So,
How does that in general work?
Okay, so two-part question. So in terms of if there's any damage,
Correct.
that is a different process. So if there's damage, and the homeowner has an issue, and I've had it, they can go through our process, and the either our technician that does it, or if it's a contractor, there's a process for that they can file a claim, and we can come out, we can investigate it and find out what's going on and go from there. If in terms of landscaping, we will not be like cutting any shrubs or removing fences or anything like that. If there's something that is impeding us being able to get access to the meter, then at that point we would probably reach out to the homeowner or the business owner at that point and say, we would need you to take care of that situation, and then we can if they can do it immediately, great. If they cannot, then we're asking you to address that situation and then reschedule a time for us to come back out and we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
And Phil, just to expound, and for the city council, just to expound on one point particularly, as water meters are located inside the house, and what's located outside is a remote reader. So again, ComEd is typically outside. They don't have a remote reader where the water division does. So, and we're doing some limited water meter replacements this year as well. We're basically following the same protocol with schedules, letters, IDs, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to make sure residents and the city council understood that. In conjunction with that, Phil, I'd like to just, we know that ComEd has been in the area, and boy, do we know. Obviously, one of the main concerns is the restoration. For example, Cass Avenue, 75th Street, besides other construction there, your subcontractor and ComEd have been out there doing quite a bit of boring, as well as open pits for the boring receivers. What is the timeline for the restoration? And one specific area is at Plainfield and 75th Street, immediately west of Plainfield on 75th. It will be on the northern right-of-way. Looks like you guys prepared some pole there and some wire, and it really looks horrendous with all the vegetation that was removed. So again, maybe this is a sidebar site meeting for us, but if you could just explain on the restoration process.
So that would be a hard one too, because the restoration, it depends on the type of job. So I'd have to look into this specifically to find out what exactly was done. I could give you generals in terms of certain types of things. Like, for example, if we do a pole replacement, it depends on who's on the pole also. So, for example, if you have a pole and it would be ComEd and, say, Comcast, and only the two of us, versus if it's ComEd, Comcast, and AT&T. The normal procedure is ComEd goes out, we put in the pole, we excavate, put in the pole, we leave the whatever was excavated there, so that when the old pole is removed, we have something to backfill. Okay? If Comcast is on the pole and only Comcast, then a joint work agreement, either way, for both cases, a joint work agreement is created. That would go to Comcast at that point. Comcast will go out, switch their stuff over, let us know, and we go back out, pull out the old pole and fill it. If it's AT&T, in most cases, what'll happen is, goes to Comcast, they move their stuff over. AT&T then goes and move their stuff over, and then AT&T removes the pole and backfills. So that's just a case of a regular pole replacement. When it comes to different projects, it depends on the project, to be honest with you. And
Okay, so you
well,
get together with these guys?
yeah,
and
I
find
would,
out?
and that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I would have to look into the project, and if you have a number of different places, then that's fine. You know, let me know. I'll look into each and every one of those and see what the situation is for that, and then I can get back to you and give you some.
Okay, 'cause it seems like the restoration has been an ongoing concern, obviously from our elected officials back to residents. So I want to make sure that we're ahead of the game versus being,
And you know,
chasing
and unfortunately, it happens. And, you know, no one is, you know, without flaw. So there are times that I've had to reach out to my folks and said, you know, guys, are we finished at this location? And unfortunately, something may have fallen through the crack, and then, you know, we'll address it. Usually, we try our best to go out and do the restoration as soon as possible, as soon as the project is over, as soon as that whatever area we're working in is finished, and we go on and try to do the restoration. But there are times that things happen, and so, you know, and that's why we appreciate the work that we do with everyone in the village, because, or in the city, because that way we have some dialogue on what's going on, and we can address it.
okay, great, thank you.
Do you have his phone number?
Sure do.
Okay. Phil, thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Real quick, I apologize. Phil, how do you determine which poles are going to, your lines are going underground? Because the one thing I get all the time along KSA Avenue and 75th Street, especially last year after they redug up 75th Street and KSA Avenue, and yet the poles are still up. How do you determine how they're going? And if you've got 10 miles of, you know, planning of doing that, the 75th and KS, any one of them.
Well, the 10 miles is for existing.
Okay.
And so it's when we go in and we test or we check the existing underground, and we either replace it or treat it. But to answer your question, I would have to default at that point to Santiago.
Well, that's a
because
whole,
he might-
actually,
Whole
yeah,
different thing.
it's a whole, we've already gotten a price from you, and what was the price?
1.8.
It was $1.8 million
But I
to bury those lines.
Bill
how
said
do
he's
you
going to negotiate it down to 500,000,
I
right?
wish.
But Phil's going to take care of that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Just how do they determine which ones are going to get done?
Yeah, can you answer that?
That sounds like a relocation, it's not a reliability issue. I don't know if I can answer that. You're saying, how do we determine?
How do you go from removing the poles to go underground?
Well, I don't think ComEd does that unless requested by a municipality, pretty much.
Well, we do that sometimes when it's a reliability issue. That's one
Okay.
of our engineering solutions. If there's a lot of tree outages, one of the solutions is to bury the primary, you know, the high voltage line. Bury that, and then what stays up is the overhead services. So you end up having poles and underground, but the veg problems are eliminated. And the poles get topped off, so instead of being a 40-foot pole, it could be a 25. But when we do that, it's based on the outage type and the duration of the outages, so.
Okay.
That's great. I mean, at least I can always go back when a resident with that.
But secondary lines could still be on there. Primaries will go underground. Secondary lines could still
Still be up there.
transversing. Okay.
Yeah, so the secondary lines they're more tree resistant, and the other reason why they stay overhead is because if we were to convert to underground, we'd have to make the customer change their overhead service to underground, and that, you know, we can't make people do that.
Okay.
But at least we remove the high voltage line, which is what causes your large customer count outages and your long outages, because many times you'll have the trees break during a storm, and it takes us a long time because everyone's out. So by burying it, you reduce the risk of that outage happening in the
Thank
future.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one other quick thing with that too. So, and one of the other things is if we do in an area bury completely, you know, remember there's still Comcast and AT&T. So and I'm experiencing this in one of my other municipalities, I'm not going to say which one, but where, you know, we're doing that for reliability purposes, but Comcast and AT&T were like, well, we don't have those issues, so we're not going underground. So the same situation happens where our stuff is now underground completely for the most part, but then you still have other utilities, and that's another reason why you'll see the pole still there in some cases, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He had a question, and I want to clarify something.
Okay.
On the, what you said, how do we determine where we put the DA devices?
Yeah.
It's based on customer count, so we try to place them where it's in chunks of 500 customers.
Okay.
So that's
Thank you.
how we determine the location. And EMA is Energy Infrastructure Modernization Act. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Away from 10 years ago.
Phil, do you know the whole history of how we got to where we are today? You know about that, right?
Yeah.
We had to sue ComEd, yes.
And so, unfortunately, fortunately now, the way we're doing business now is getting better than the way we
Yeah,
did business.
yeah.
And our new CEO, or I shouldn't say new, but Anne Parmigieri, again, her.
Do you want to come back up to the microphone? Yeah.
Anne's focus has been, and that's the motto that we're go by, is a premier customer experience. We do our best to listen to our customers, to try and address issues that come up with our customers, and that is her focus. I mean, that is everywhere she goes, everywhere we go, every meeting, staff meeting, that is her focus that we do. And so, we're doing our best to improve on those and not to relive things in the past and how things were done in the past, but to move forward. And so, we're from everywhere we go. I've been with ComEd for almost a year now, and everywhere I go, people are telling me it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
reliability is improved.
what brings a smile to my face, I get together with a lot of mayors from other towns, and I listen to them moan about their issues with ComEd, and I just sit there with a smile because we have improved, as you have pointed out, how much we've improved from
you.
where we've come from. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Let's move on to the city clerk's report.
Just one item, Madam Mayor. The Darien City offices will be closed on Monday, May the 30th, in observance of Memorial Day.
Thank you. City administrator's report?
No report, but I just want to remind Jack and his family, don't feel obligated to stay. It's getting a little bit late. Maybe you have homework or something. You're not insulting anybody, so it's up to you. You could feel free to stay if you'd like, though. Other than that, Mayor, I have no report.
I know
Thank
some
you.
of our stuff is real exciting, as you can tell. Yeah. It was interesting, don't you think? Yeah. We love to bring up the fact of what we had to do to get ComEd to behave themselves and give us good service. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah. All right, let's move on to department head information. And Chief, I think you're going to take the.
I am.
Okay.
Lost the crowd.
Thank you, Mayor, Alderman, and audience. A couple things on the monthly report of importance is this week is Police Week. President Kennedy in 1962 signed legislation that said that the week that May 15 falls within is Police Week, and it's the time that we honor the police officers that paid the ultimate sacrifice and was killed in the line of duty. So appreciate all the fine work that officers do every day, and prayers go out to those killed in the line of duty. I think there was 128 in 2015 that were killed or died in the line of duty. Talk about a few things. I gave out the monthly report and a lot of statistics in there as usual, but one of the things I took an opportunity to discuss this time around, been here about 6 months, and so what have you been doing for 6 months? So I took the opportunity to talk about some accomplishments, as well as do a little bit of a preview about story to come. So it took a long time in the police committee. I won't take as long here. Some things that we looked at was, just a little bit of disclaimer first. Just because I changed something doesn't mean it was wrong. A lot of people want to talk about prior administrations or those type of things. I was just talking about it to Deputy Chief Cooper about, I worked for 8 police chiefs in my career. Actually, I was the 8th, so I didn't work for myself, I guess. But each one would come in and make some administrative changes and do those type of things. It's all in an effort to continuous improvement. Doesn't mean that was done wrong before, or when I leave, everything's gonna be perfect, because I will guarantee it's not, but we'll look at constant improvement. So, just said that. Performance evaluations, we haven't had performance evaluations by our sworn, for our sworn staff in a number of years, so that was one of the first things we did was address that issue and talk about performance evaluations. Along with performance evaluations, we talked about performance accountability and matrix and those type of things, what we're going to be looking for there. What is as important as the evaluation was the leadership exercise that was gone through and demonstrated in that process. And so met with all the staff and talked about the need for performance evaluations and whatever else that they thought were the top things to get done with soon. So we talked about that and talked about what they would want in a performance evaluation. So go back and use some resources that we have through IACP.net, number of different documents and forms that you can use. So use that to come up with a base model, and then put procedures together, an evaluation manual together, evaluation forms together, go back to the sergeants and discuss the whole thing and see about where we're going to be, and get good buy-in, get good feedback, and then go out and implement it. And then be willing to also look at it after implementation for anything that worked out well, or anything that was not so well. And obviously the officers that are getting evaluated had an opportunity at that time to tell us, you know, what worked out well, what did not work out well. So it wasn't just evaluation, it was the process to get to those evaluations as well. Now, the building, I don't know what the building cost back in 1995, I believe it was finished, but I would bet that it cost a significant chunk of change for the city, and probably the biggest expenditure that you've had to make. And so it should be well maintained and well used. And so when we look at different things about the building, we want to make sure that we're getting business term return on investment, so that when we make a purchase, when I come to you and say, hey, buy me cars, hey, buy me this, do this, there should be a purpose at the end of there. There should be a result that you're going to get. So looking at the building, there was a number of things that we want to do, and what we've done. So we created actually an EOC in the building. And we had a name on it, but didn't have the resources, the computers, the phones, the tables, and all the other things in order to set up for an EOC. Repurposed tables, repurposed cabinets, repurposed different things in order to make that work. And so it's looking good that way. And always making it multi-use. So it can be used as a training room, it could be used as an EOC, it can be used as a conference room, and we use it quite a bit actually as a conference room. That's current configuration. You can take all the tables and chairs out, because folding tables, nesting chairs, put them away, and you can do your defensive tactics instruction there. So multi-use, and we'll talk about some other building plans in the future in a second. One of the big things that you want to do when you come into a new environment is always to do the audits, so that you want to make sure that the drug evidence is there, the money evidence is there. If you have petty cash, that's there. If you have informants funds, that the money's there. If you have flash money, that those are there. We don't have informant funds or flash money, so all good that way. Weapons that you say you're supposed to have, and you made the purchase, that you have an accountability for all those. So all those audits were done, and everything is looking good that way.
Chief, just to stop you for a minute, we purchased a bunch of evidence room materials, didn't we? Was it evidence? Was it the evidence room?
Software and shelving, are you
Shelving and
thinking
things
of
like
that?
that.
And the
Is that all
software
in
for
there?
the inventory?
That's all in there, okay.
Yep, correct.
I just wanted to be sure we had
Yeah,
that.
when the building was originally designed, there was no place for evidence packaging. There was a place for live lineups, which you're never going to do. If you have a suspect that's 5'8", male, and a beard and wears glasses, you're probably not going to find a lot of those around the police department. Those are going to be done at the county. And so it was really a waste of space. So that was repurposed to do that level of work. And again, we took a computer stand from another place. It was like 8 foot wide. It was really nice. And repurposed that downstairs, got rid of the table that was falling apart, the desk that was falling apart. So where you can repurpose and those type of things, and I'm not shy about coming and asking for furniture or other things that will be needed in order to properly maintain the building in the shape that it should be dealt with. And again, allowing the officers to work more effectively and efficiently throughout that process. Talking about that, one of the things that we're going to look forward to is proper evidence processing. And what I'm talking about in this particular case is drying locker. Whenever you have dry evidence that is wet, whether it's cannabis that's still green, it's going to mold. And so in order to keep that from happening, you have to have it dried. So it'll go in a drying locker, which is properly vented out of the building in order to make that work. Blood evidence, it'll mold, and you'll lose criminal cases if you don't do it right. So we'll be improving in that direction as well. So a lot of looking at the building to make sure that we're doing what we should be doing with the building and moving ahead that way. So a lot of review of systems. Some of the things we looked at, again, return on investment. We need a significant investment in LPR, license plate recognition, automated license plate recognition. And in a lot of jurisdictions it works. I think it was a good decision to give it a try, but I think we've had it for 2 years. And no arrests, no warrant services, no recovered stolen vehicles, all those different types of things that you normally get out of AVL or LPR wasn't there. So we still have that under contract for another 6-8 months or so. So once that's done and there's no improvement on that, we're probably going to discontinue that. So just looking at all the different systems that we currently have and looking at making sure that we're getting return on the investment. If we're not getting a return on the investment, why? Is it not being used? We purchase it, so it's sitting on a shelf, or is it actually being used as just not valuable to us? So just looking at all the different types of things to make sure that our equipment is used. We talked about the building, make sure the building's proper. Another title that I had put in there was administration. There's a number of different things that way. The law, Uniform Peace Officers Disciplinary Act, it's commonly referred to as UPOTA, requires certain things to happen when there's a complaint against an officer, so we want to make sure that those are properly implemented. So we're putting the forms and the processes into place to make sure that that works. Looking at some type of document imaging system, there's a ton of documents that sometimes are problematic in trying to recover and what file they're in and different types of things. There's Personnel Records Act, the 820 ILCS 40/ whatever, that requires certain things that happen, and so it's a lot easier when it's digital than when it's paper. Because paper just takes so much time to go through all those documents that may be in the personnel record that shouldn't be in a personnel record, and all those different types of things. So document storage is going to be big. Forms management will be big issues to deal with. State of Illinois has a number of issues. We talked about some financial things that they go through and different issues that they happen. A lot of times there are unfunded mandates that will occur. I'm currently tracking about a dozen pieces of legislation at the state level that may have an impact here. Just as an example, there's legislation that requires every police officer, every sworn police officer that carries a firearm to carry a taser. Other than hitting Brian Vanna with a taser for fun, there's probably no need for me to carry a taser. It's just not going to be necessary. But it's going to be an added expense if all your administrators and everybody that wears a badge that carries a gun now has to carry a taser.
Has that passed the state lit?
No.
It's still in.
It's a bill right now. Yeah. But there's a number of those type of things that are out there that's unfunded mandates that, the work is going to have to be done and the cost is going to have to be dealt with by the local municipality. So trying to fix a problem doesn't always fix the problem. You got to think all the way through it. I think it was last month we talked about DUCOM and other agencies that assist us with doing their work, and how DUCOM probably saves us over $100,000 a year because of that consolidation. Well, there's a bill about sweeping funds. So if those funds are swept, somebody still has to pay for 911 services. So instead of being paid for out of a tax bill on your cell phone or out of your phone at home, it's now going to be paid for out of your taxing body. So there's a lot of different pieces of legislation just to watch out for and make sure that going well. Operationally, you know, we talked about data, and we talked about data quite a bit. You know, we look at data for hot spots, hot people. We look at data for manpower, staffing, all these different types of things. And one of the unfortunate things and troubling things for me has been finding data that's usable. And I've worked with a number of different vendors that we have. iTech is the vendor that we use for software application for accidents. And it should be very simple. If I put the data in, I should be able to get a report out, and I can't. And so that's frustrating. So I worked with iTech. They sent me 7 samples, and we finally got the right one on number 7. So we're good to go. So on the 5th of the month, I will get all the accident data that I need. So now I can look at time of day that occurs, day of the week that occurs, what type of violation, what causation happens, so we can do what we need to do in order to reduce accidents. Same thing with information from APS, the software company that does our ticketing. So in order to look at how many tickets are issued, how many traffic stops are made, how many warning tickets, is the enforcement where the accidents happen. So you're driving down accidents or whatever the case may be. So a lot of different pieces of the puzzle getting put together on data in order to make sure that that works. So we'll continue on that. We have different pieces of software, and when you look at software, technology, equipment, you always want to look at software, technology, equipment, and the like as to how it creates efficiencies and effectiveness by the officer. Whether it's a faster way of doing something so they're back out on patrol quicker, or it actually has a direct link to problem solving, crime solving. And so we will look at those different pieces of software. One of the things that we did was looked at software that I was familiar with, SharePoint. And then one of the sergeants had said, you know, we have something similar to that. It's not exactly like that, but we have this device called SEMP, Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, that's already currently installed and currently being used, and we can use that. So we started doing that with house checks. So instead of an officer having to remember all the locations where the house check is, or going to a book and roll call before he goes out on patrol or whatever the case may be, now it's at his fingertips in the squad car. So we'll do the same thing with solicitors. So when somebody calls in about a solicitor, the officer will have it at their fingertips whether or not that solicitor has a valid license. Same thing with warrants. All the warrants will be posted online, so hopefully you'll get better service of warrants and the like.
That's one thing I did notice in your statistics. What you had like 400 unserved warrants?
Correct.
And why?
There's a lot of reasons for unserved warrants. And one of the things, again, back to state legislation, one of the things the state legislators did a number of years ago, and then they redid recently, was sign and drive. So now you don't have to post a bond. So now I have no, because I didn't put up a bond, I didn't put up $120, I didn't put up my driver's license or a surety bond. Now there's no reason for me to go to court, so now I don't go to court and I get a warrant issued. And so a lot of transient people. So by the time that ticket's issued, first court appearance, second court appearance, and warrants issued, you're probably 3 months later, and that person has moved, and so now it's difficult trying to find them, and they just stack up and start counting up. So if you have any questions, comments, and concerns, I'll answer anything I can. If not, I'll turn it over to my cohort, Dan, and he can tell all
I think
about
Alderman
stuff.
Clistic has a question for you.
Quick question. Can you give us any updates on the burglaries on Clarendon Hills from last month or 2 months ago? Is there any progress on that from a detective?
Yeah, you know, some of those are frustrating because in 2 of our burglaries, I think we're up to 9 burglaries so far this year. 2 of them, the complainant knew the suspect and does not want to pursue charges. Those are frustrating. So we clear those, called cleared lack of complaint. The one specifically that you talk about on Clarendon Hills, have very good leads. It's just not the appropriate time to make the arrest.
Okay.
That means in code talk that there's probably going to be other arrests coming forth on the person.
And then the second question I had, do we track, for example, the amount of cases like the detective gets and what he solves
Correct.
versus other ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that in the police report, or how is that?
No,
that
that, it's called case management, and we keep that on a access database. So I can tell you that one detective has 21 working cases, another one has 27.
Okay.
I can tell you that both of them have 12 cases that are in some type of holding pattern, either waiting for lab work, waiting for subpoenas, those type of things.
Okay.
So we do keep track of all those items, yes, sir.
Okay. Questions from residents from time to time asking how those go.
Sure.
How those are tracked.
And if the residents have a question about their specific crime that had happened, then they can always call the detectives. They'll look up that report. They'll give them a status update of where they're at and whether the case is cleared, closed, active. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Burglaries on 71st Street last week. Any update?
I don't. No.
Because it was odd because on Friday, 4:15, I was coming home and 2 guys walking around. One guy's on the other side of the street with a cell phone. One other guy's, they were gutter cleaners.
Oh, yeah?
Around the same time as the week before, I called 911 because these guys were just kind of lollygagging as they were doing it. But they fit the same stuff that went on the week before.
The idea that
So
the
I
two
thought-
construction guys.
I thought I had him. No. But
You know what, Alderman, whether you had them or not, there was an appropriate thing to do. And so, how would you feel today if I came back and said, you know what, we had a citizen that failed to call the police, but you don't want that.
No.
So give the call, let the police go do the investigation, and if it's nothing, it's nothing. And if it's something, that's great. So absolutely call.
Yeah,
don't
that's
feel
what
bad
I
about
stressed
those.
with the seniors today.
Yes.
That frankly, as we said before, they're the most vulnerable. And
They
I
are.
said, if you have any suspicion whatsoever, don't let them in the house, and immediately call the police.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like we were talking with ComEd, there was a lot of good information about the ID. There's good information that, what was his name, Paul? I can't remember.
Phil?
That was presenting, he's talking about, we're not going to collect any money. So that's a clue. So when somebody from, I am coming from Con Ed, I swapped out your meter and now I need $50,
Yeah,
cash is the easiest way of handling it.
yeah.
That's a scam. It's not going to happen. So
Well, and then the scam that
very good thing.
Brian mentioned too, the one about, well, hey, do you want to come out and take a look at what I've done?
Right.
Well, the guy is at the front door coming in your house, yeah. So
Exactly.
those kind of scams.
Yep, happens frequently, unfortunately.
Anything else for Chief? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan, did you have anything?
No, I don't, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Dan, I've got a question for you. Could you give us an update? I got a call from Dave Rotkin with the Historical Society, and I had occasion to talk to John Carr, supposedly with the concern over a lead issue with the painting on the outside and the inside of the Historical Society.
I'm not aware of anything.
John had indicated that we had the painting in last year's budget, but now we wouldn't be able to paint because now there was a concern about lead, and we would have to go back and take a look at whether or not there is a lead issue, and if there is, what cost that's going to be to us.
Well, if John Carr did speak on any type of lead, there is a procedure that is in place for all painters, first of all, to be in compliance with any type of lead issues on older buildings, especially with paint. They have to be certified in painting. So again, I'm not sure what that conversation was exactly.
He was communicating with Salvato. You might have been gone, because I came into City Hall to see you about it, and I caught him, because I was asked the question, and John said he had already communicated to Salvato, and they wouldn't be able to paint it, either the inside or the outside, until they assessed if they actually had a lead issue with regard to the.
That's been a known issue all along, Dan.
Yeah,
that
since day
that
number
there's
one,
lead in
right?
that paint in the
Yeah.
in the building.
Right, and I was aware of it, but a painter actually showed up when the Historical Society group was meeting, and he said he had the bid to do the painting. And they mentioned to him, well, we have a lead issue. And he said, well, I know nothing about a lead issue.
Okay.
And John, when I talked to John, John says, we had to drop the contract with the guy because now we got to deal with the issue of the lead.
Well, and there's certain protocols. The first one is if you're painting over something and that's scraping it again, but I'm not getting into the logistics here of it. I'll follow up with that portion of it.
Yeah, and
let you know.
the other thing is, they hate to bother you with phone calls. So I told her, I said, well, call me, and I'll either talk to you or I'll talk to Dan Salvato or whoever I have to talk to, because they feel that they don't want to bother people, and I respect that.
Joe, they've talked to communicate either myself or Dan. It is most helpful, though, if they send emails, and they've been doing that in terms of communicating. Dan, I'm sure you would agree.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best way. So we have it in writing. We have time frames, so there's not, 4 or 5 people. So, talking about the issue. So, whether it's Dean or somebody else.
Or Alice, yeah.
Or Alice, it's been really good and helpful to do it that way, too.
The only reason I bring it up is because she hadn't heard from anybody with regard to this issue, with regard to the paint. The guy
So it didn't reach to Dan, is what the bottom line is.
She contacted John Carr, and John didn't get back to her.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not, we all know that there was lead in there from day number one. Whether we know it or not, we'd have to presume it just based on the age of the building and the paints that were utilized then.
Okay, but is this going to be an issue for us in terms of budgeting? Because we had that in.
We'll have to look at it, Joe. Yeah, I mean, Dan will have to get more information. I think, like he said, he's aware of it, and he'll have to talk and find out what had happened, but there's procedures to paint over it, so as soon as we can get that, we'll have to come back if there's any budget issues.
And that was addressed, as far as I'm concerned, within the budget for consideration of lead abatements.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to the treasurer's report. We have 2 warrants this evening. You want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First warrant is warrant number 151625, the amount of $687,995.11 from the listed funds.
This is the last one for the current fiscal year?
I don't want to say it's the last one.
Oh, that's true.
There
Yeah.
could be another one. In fact, I do want to make the council aware, this is usually where I present the monthly report. Ordinarily, we would have April 30th's monthly report, but as you can see, we're still getting bills in effective as of April 30th, so I would imagine we're at least going to have probably one more warrant, and it'll probably be another month before we're going to be able to close up the April report as Marie finishes the work for our auditors who are coming in, I think, the first week in June to do the year-end work.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve warrants 15, 16, 25? Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Belke. And my question to you, Treasurer Corn, is, it seemed, when I was looking at the police budget items the most, there was a positive and a negative on all that equipment, uniforms and stuff. What was that all about?
Just the credit balance.
Yeah. We traded in, I believe they were the guns, they were old Glocks. I'm not
Tasers
sure
or
it was
not?
Glocks, but
Oh,
there were
yeah,
some
yeah.
old guns, and rather than sell them to where we buy the police uniforms, they gave us about approximately an $8,500 credit. Now, the police get a uniform allowance, so when they order a uniform, say for $200, and we have this credit, we don't have to pay the $200, but we're using this credit.
Oh,
But we have to
that's what
record
it
the
is. Okay.
$200,
All right.
so it goes against that officer's account
Yes.
for being utilized against his
Okay.
individual
think that-
uniform allowance.
I think that credit's down to about $150, so you probably won't see so many of the debits and credits in the same account line.
Yeah.
Kind of weird to look at. but-
We didn't get rid of that issue in our last police union contract, did we? Darn it. Oh. Okay, any questions for that warrant for the treasurer? Then the roll, please.
Kenny?
Aye.
Belke?
Aye.
Clistic? 6 ayes and 1 absent.
The warrant has been approved. The next warrant?
Okay, requesting approval of warrant number 161702 in the amount of $193,436.09 from the listed funds and payroll for the period ended May 12th, the amount of $261,177.20, for a total to be approved of $454,613.29.
And motion to approve, Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any discussion? Then the roll, please.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
The warrant has been approved. Standing committee reports. Alderman Marquez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder, Municipal Services is going to meet next Monday, May 23rd at 6:30 here in the council chambers.
Alderman Shower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next admin finance meeting will be held on Monday, June 6, 2016, at 6 p.m. in our upstairs meeting room.
And Alderman Belkey.
Yes, we approved the meeting minutes for the police committee on December 21st and submitted those to the court. Our next meeting will be held on July 18th, 2016 at 6 o'clock in the police training room.
Thank you.
You're not meeting in June?
Not according to this agenda. Do you think we should
That might
do
have
it
been
pending?
Yeah, that might have been an error. We would typically have, if we have agenda items, we would meet in June.
Because I do have a date of June 20th, and
Okay,
that's why I
let's go with that
questioned it.
Yes.
pending agenda item.
So are we changing that to 6/20, June 20th?
That's the
That-
next scheduled
that-
meeting.
that-
That was
Okay.
probably error on the current agenda.
Okay. So the police committee, next meeting is June 20th at 6 p.m. Okay. Let's move to questions, comments, and announcements. We didn't have a work session to discuss items on the agenda, so does anyone have any questions on the 2 items that are on the agenda? I know Alderman McIver would have a lot to say about one of them, but
Oh, wow.
okay, if there's no questions, let's move on to old business. There being no old business, let's move to the consent agenda. There's only 2 items on the consent agenda, and I'm sorry you had to sit through all of this, but that's the way it goes sometimes. The first is a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3, Section 3-3-7-14, which is our Class N license in the Darien City Code, and that is for Miskatonic Brewing. And the next item is a motion to approve a resolution approving participation with the Village of Woodridge and Downers Grove to provide fireworks at Ziegfeld Troy Golf Course on the 4th of July in an amount not to exceed $5,000. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Belzak. The roll, please.
Shower.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Marquez.
No.
5 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent.
The motion has been approved. The next item is new business, and there being no new business, we can move on to questions, comments, and announcements. Do any of the aldermen have any announcements to make? Alderman Belzak?
Actually, I had a question for the chief after he stepped down. It occurred to me. You talked about unfunded mandates that the state can propose for us to have to spend money on. Would we be able to use Department of Justice forfeiture money on that type of unfunded mandate? Now, in a case like what you were talking about, you having to have a taser, that would be something that I would assume normally would not fall under being able to use forfeiture funds, but in a situation where you're required to when you normally wouldn't, would that be something that would fall under?
Whether or not it's an unfunded mandate has no bearing on whether or not it's going to be covered by federal forfeiture funds.
Okay.
The federal forfeiture funds have certain criteria that have to be met in order to use those funds. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. The taser is probably going to be a yes as the equipment. Paying for 911 services is almost going to be a no. Definitely going to be a no. So it just depends.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the roll, please. The consent agenda? Oh, we already approved it. Oh, my God. Okay. We're already on to questions, comments, and announcements. Okay. I'm tired. Does it show? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to the did you want to speak to us? Okay.
I did just want to say thanks to the city of Darien. We're coming up on the end of our first year here at Miskatonic Brewing Company being located in Darien. It's been a great first year. We felt very welcomed. We've had 3 or 4 times where police have stopped by and just introduced themselves, wanted to at least know sort of the location and everything like that. Just fantastic, just general community support. And we're excited that in the next few months we'll be rolling out cans soon to be out on store shelves, and it'll be proudly saying brewed and packaged in Darien, Illinois.
How cool is that? Thank you
But
very
thank you
much.
again.
Thank you. Okay. With that said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
One more thing.
Okay.
Did you want to bring up the food pantry, or is that another
Yeah,
day?
well, you know what? When you had your laundry list of things before, I thought you were going to bring that up. I am going to write a response, and then I'll send it to Brian so I can send it to all of you. And the bottom line to what Claudia Manley wrote, I don't know how else to. Let me give you some background on that issue of how this all got started. The Northern Illinois Food Bank and most major food banks throughout the United States are pushing for school-located food pantries because it's the most logical place for residents to come to get the food. It's a friendly place. Their children most likely go to school there. So this is a process that's happening all through the United States. So in picking up on this, the Hinsdale Junior League offered a $300,000 grant to District 86 to set up one of these school-based food pantries. And that's how this all started. What will happen will be it will be run professionally by HCS, which is the food pantry in Hinsdale, which has been in operation for 70 years. So there will be no cost to the school. The debate now is going over a location for it. And do you remember that kinder care building that the high school bought? That now is becoming a topic of discussion as to that would be a good location. There isn't any liability to this school for this operation because it will be run professionally. The children, this high school students, will not be in the facility when parents or families are there. So it's not a case of people being exposed that need the service of a food pantry. So that whole issue it's a non-issue. So I guess all I can say is Mrs. Manley just isn't getting it. What I was trying to present was that we have 3 school districts in Darien. 2 of them have a high. District 61 has over 500 children that are food insecure. District 63 has a smaller, I think it's less than 150 students, but they only have a population of 780 students.
They're a little bit below 200.
Yeah. So that's a lot of, and this District 61 takes in more than just Darien. Okay. And even 63 takes in more than just Darien. So the issue is not Darien. There are 23 feeder schools that feed into District 86. And actually, the city of Darien's numbers of food insecure children are less than some of the other feeder schools. Westmont, I mean, the numbers, you can go to the Illinois school reports, you can see how big this issue is. So to my mind, it's a no-brainer that this is something that would be a very good service to people in need, and it's our school children. So I do want to address that in the letter. We do address the issue of food insecurity here. The Rotary Club is very involved with the backpack program in 61 and 63. We have 2 food pantries in the city of Darien, so we're not ignoring this issue. And the grant can only go to the school district. It has to be on school property. It can't go to our police department. It can't go to our city hall. It's specific to a school-based food pantry. So there's a lot of issues that I have to, talk about in my response to what Mrs. Manley is proposing. So it's not just a Darien issue. It's much larger than that. So that's, I just wanted you to get a flavor of what this whole thing is all about. The Northern Illinois Food Pantry is driving this issue of having school-based food pantries. And they're only one they're Illinois, but all through the United States, this is the focus now, putting these food pantries in schools, which is probably the most accessible and friendly location for these. And only the families of students in the feeder schools and the high schools can use the service. It's not any Joe Schmo walking into the place. And they have to prove that they are students or families in the district. So those are, I just wanted to give you a feel for what this issue is all about, yeah.
Kathy, can their board deny setting that up as a facility? I assume they could.
They have that option. And I know that Debbie Baker, who is the director of HCS in Hinsdale, and Stephanie Palmer are working on the location and, discussing that transition building and it would be a very good facility to address some of the issues. And I hope they're not hiding behind, not in my backyard mentality, because we simply can't. We cannot do that. And the benefit to the students, think about the benefit to our students, our high school students, of just teaching them about social justice and, giving back to their community. There is so much benefit to this project that I hope the board is really taking a look at.
But I mean, from the standpoint of what you just described, the students would only have, the students would have contact with the people receiving the food. They would only have contact with sorting the food.
So that's right, putting the food on the shelves and things like that. It would be after hours when the students would be able to be in the facility. They would not be in the facility when it's being operated for families to come in and get food.
So they would be able to do it. They'd have some community service orientation.
And that would be a perfect, that would be a perfect opportunity for, the confirmation kids to get their community service hours in and stuff. So I just want you to know, and, I'm going to give my best shot at providing a response. And I know Cynthia McGann is very involved with this issue, too. She spoke in favor of this. She was there with me that day. And now we're working on there. We've had, according to Mrs. Manley's email, she's only heard negative things. Well, we know there's a lot of positive responses out there. And right now, I think that's what we're going to be working on, is making sure they know that there is a lot of positive feedback on that issue.
So
Yes.
it sounds like, excuse me, it's up to the school board. So how does the city or the city council play an effect? Of this?
None.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, none. So I just spoke as, as a person, a resident of Darien, that I think this is a very good idea, to do this. Tom?
I had the same reaction when I read the letter, and I'm wondering, did she send letters to Willowbrook and to
Yeah.
Hinsdale and
Yeah.
to Burridge and to Clarendon Hills? Because District 86 covers such a wide area compared to what Darien covers.
Yeah.
It would seem like each of these communities would have to do what she's proposing, and it would make no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You just gave me some more firepower in my response, because you're right, it just doesn't make any sense. So, that's what I'll give my best shot to get a response and send that.
And the
to
building
Brian.
would be actually off campus, correct?
Well, no, it's
I don't know yet.
considered a school facility, so
Okay.
yes. it
But I
would-
mean, but it's off the main campus.
The high school,
So
yeah.
from a safety standpoint, Chief, is what I'm looking at, to have somebody wouldn't be able to have the possibly the access into the school during like a school day kind of thing. So,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and I think the board was banding about hours of operation after the school hours, to even further address that concern. So we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you very much. We did have a motion to adjourn.
No.
We didn't. Okay, motion to adjourn, Alderman Marquez. Yes, we have to
we
adjourn
have
from
to-
this meeting? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Alderman Clistic. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're going back to executive session.